little bit, Gary, so we can, crowd can see. Yeah, your lovely face. Are you comfortable? You want something up under your feet?
Oh, no.
You good? Okay. She's expecting, so we want to make sure the mama is
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, because I feel like I'm in between your generation and the younger generation, because with being outside, we didn't have a choice but to be outside. So there was no like come in the house, play games. It's you go outside, you go to the garage. Especially when I would come here in my grandma's house, we had like, you know, the whole freezer, refrigerator in the garage. Like you don't come upstairs, you stay outside, you play outside.
That's right.
So I'm still used to being outside as well, maybe not as much as you guys, but it wasn't a thing to just be in. And then I played a lot of sports, so I was always active and out. So even though the younger generations used to being inside, it's also still not healthy for them because the bullying has went up. And also their isolation and the way they have depression just looks different from you guys in an older age range.
How so?
Because for them, it's normal to be inside, so a lot of times you don't even know they're depressed because it's normal to be inside.
That's true.
And then for generations, either my generation or maybe your generation, like to be inside is one thing where it's just like I feel lonely and you can speak it, but also you're old enough to be a little bit more in tune with your feelings.
Right.
So speaking it out is a little bit easier, but then it's like, well, what do I do to get out?
Right.
They have options to get out, they just don't.
No.
It's like a lot of social anxiety.
Because they have so much in your rooms, all this technology, so
Right.
they stay in their little caves.
Right.
Yeah.
Food, on games.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But the connection is different too. So they're on the tablets, and even though they're talking, they're still not connected to the people they're
True.
talking to. Because they never had it.
Right.
You at least, if you're gonna talk on the phone or Zoom or Skype or something like that, you at least, this is somebody you probably know and you have a deeper connection with them. So it makes a difference.
Right.
So it's like, it's still happening on both ends, it just looks different.
So yeah, that's a good point right there. I'm interested in how someone who's older and not a child or someone who's in school would be able to recognize the signs and how it kind of, you know, what they feel inside their bodies maybe, that they can say, you know what, something's not right, you know, and, you know, how can we,
For the children?
No.
For the teenager or for
for
the adults?
adults?
Okay,
Yeah.
let's make sure, like, wait, who's it?
Yeah, for adults.
One thing is understanding that depression, particularly if you get into a depressed state, does not mean that you always look grumpy or sad or down. Because you have a lot of people, like you go to work, you engage with other people, but you're functioning, but you're depressed. So it might look like things are just a little harder for you to do. Maybe you have headaches, maybe like you just don't feel good. And then when it's time to get up and go out, it just takes that much longer to get it. You'll go, but it's like no depth in your connection with the people that you're going around.
So here's what I know, and then I kind of want to get like pull you in and kind of help me understand a little bit better. So I know that from birth we are wired to be social people. We are wired to interact. How babies, you know, learn and you know by touch and by feel and by love, right? And even in humans, when we're adults, we still need that because we've got all these like electrical neurons in our head that are, you know, stimulated by this kind of interaction. And so when we don't get it, you know, to my understanding, those connections in our brain loosen. And when those connections loosen, you know, believe it or not, they say that our cognitive skills are, you know, diminished to a certain degree. Not that they can't be re-stimulated, but like brain fog and like you said, headaches, and it just leaves a space for inflammation to get inside. And I'm just wondering how someone could recognize that this is what's actually happening, so that they can pump the brakes before they get to being depressed, before it gets to that. I mean, obviously, we know what depression kind of looks like or feels like to a certain degree.
Right.
But how do we recognize what's going on before when it's just a state of loneliness?
Well, some of it, honestly, each person is different and it can be harder because my thing will say, in general, with your health, you should be talking about it, talking to your doctor. trying to be social. When you know you used to be social, and all of a sudden like COVID stopped you from being social because now you're inside. Because everybody's level of awareness is just different. Some people don't know until they hit with it and be like, oh, I've been depressed. And then they can look back and say, well, I can see the signs now. But if you've been in isolation, it's very hard because now you got into a routine. It's harder for you to just wake up and be like, oh, well, I'm not doing what I used to. Because you might give excuses for it. Like I have a lot of people like they're in the house until I break down like, look, show you the steps of how you got here. And then they can look back on why they were getting here. But if you know that you're alone, it will be, where are your friends? Because some people like depend on like if you're 50 above, are you working all the time? Do you still have a family? Do you still have young kids? Do you still have friends? Do you still have like, do you go to church? Do you have a church community? Are you involved in those things, or have you noticed like you have no family around you, no spouse, no children, and then you're by yourself, but all I do is go to work? So everybody's situation, because they're different, but if you can just take a look today, so somebody's listening now, today you just look back and be like, okay, where was I 3 years ago compared to today? What has changed? What's the reason for the change? Am I truly comfortable with this, or have I just let it become my new normal? If you let it become your new normal, then okay, you need to like, well, let's really see how we're doing. Let's really see what's going on. I always would suggest like, go talk to somebody so you can work through some of the things, because I have clients in this store and it's so different from this store and how they got there.
So, I do have one more question. You had said something about, like your behaviors. Would you say that, procrastination would be a sign of, like, isolation? Like, if you just are constantly putting things off and not dealing with things, is that something that people should be thoughtful about? Like, is that...
Yes, procrastination. It doesn't necessarily have to be that that's going to be depression, but procrastination, if you're doing it a lot, that's something where you need to notice it anyway. Because if it's not depression, could it be ADHD? Because a lot of adults get now diagnosed with ADHD.
Okay, that's what happened.
No, with that, because of procrastination, but also on the other side, also see perfectionism. And so now instead of like, especially if you always this very analytical person, you're always on, but then everything is like, what? Right, you're over, but you're like, okay, I'm gonna do this, and this I can be here, this I can be here. So if somebody sees you, you're always got everything together, but on the inside, it's very different. And how you cope is to make everything perfect on the outside.
Let me ask you a question. I want to know the physical manifestations of depression. When I was in my 20s, I had a friend. She was the first person I'd ever known who was going through a divorce. And she naturally had very clear skin, but when she was going through her divorce, she had all these breakouts on her back, on the back of her neck, a little like around the hormonal area around here. And she just could not figure it out. She went to her doctor, and the doctor was asking her stereotypical questions like, did you change your diet? Did you change your laundry detergent? And he said, are you going through anything that's different? She said, well, I'm going through divorce. And then he said, oh, that's easy, then it's just lack of human touch. You need to go get regular weekly massages and your skin will clear up. She did, and her skin did clear up. So I want to know, like, and I do know that she kind of got withdrawn. She was going through a lot with the divorce. It wasn't an easy process. So when people are going through depression, I mean, is there a depressive state? Is there like any other physical manifestations that could occur inside their bodies that are happening?
The answer is yes. It's a lot of different things. Everybody's different, and normally I say it's your stress. Right? So for her, she's going to divorce, so in her isolation was also stress. And normally, like, just think about it when, if you get hurt, so like naturally our thing to do is usually like to isolate. It's like to like kind of turn into self. And so when people do that, what's going to show up from that will always be different. But like, I know like if you have headaches, like you said, her skin broke out for her. I see people have a lot of gut issues. Women in particular have a lot of gut issues. And also lack of focus. So it's like, that's not like physical skin, but like you said, like when we talk about, it could be ADHD or whether it's not,
Brain
but that
fog.
like that brain fog, that
Yeah.
lack of focus, everything is just so much harder. And I see more so people notice mostly it's like they can't get out of the bed, or it's just harder for them to do everything. It's not like they can't do it, it just feels harder. But like I said, people, migraines, so that's something I hear people say, they have migraines. But a lot of, particularly because I predominantly work with women, is the gut issues.
Okay.
So it can be from gallbladder to IBS to like, because wherever you hold your stress.
Okay.
So, or shoulder pain, or just sometimes people just have physical pain. It's no specific spot, but they keep saying they're in pain. But,
So is that what you mean by when you hold your stress,
right,
the pain? Okay.
Inflammation in your body.
right.
Yeah.
I know you keep raising your hand.
Somebody get it right.
None of us had ever been through COVID or I'm sorry, a pandemic before. What are the things that you're seeing post-pandemic as they relate to mental health and our abilities to process?
Because of so much more isolation, and then honestly, culturally, I see the younger generation at least come action better. Older generation, it's been harder for them to want to talk about it. I have more older clients now, but they don't want to talk about it, or it's, I didn't pray hard enough, or it's, I've been, my mom didn't do this, I've been doing this, I'm strong, we'll get over it, be fine, I'm just gonna do this, this, and this. And so, like, honestly, pride,
I think
in that piece too.
I think that historically we have been taught to shy away from counseling or
Right.
getting help. I mean, it was almost a sign of weakness. You know, if we talk to, I'm gonna make it gender based, if we talk to our fathers, they were like, rub some dirt on it. Dude, I need like staples, my neck hanging off, rub some dirt on it, boy, you be all right. And a lot of times, even when we went to those, when we were directed to quote unquote get help, we were sent to paraprofessionals or people that we thought were good at something. So a lot of times we might have gone to, say, a minister. But the minister could have been the very source of the stress. So, and just because you're good at something, I mean, if my car breaks down, I'm not calling my plumber. I need my mechanic to do that. Even though my plumber is really good, and I think, I'm going to bring it back in, I know. But I think that a lot of times we have shied away culturally from getting help or from even talking about our problems. And we have done everything in our power to make that, to ostracize that behavior or that practice.
And just from like, personally, like with my mom, she just retired, but with her, I've seen her anxiety go up. And sometimes I see people who have anxiety, but underneath the anxiety is really depression. But anxiety is just what manifests, and I can tell you, like, something's awful, like, what's going on, and just knowing how to settle down where you are now. Or, like, of course, layoffs. So then it's like, how do I take care of my family? I still have a family. Or looking for a new job, and now I'm of a certain age. How do I find a job that's going to pay me this much? So it's like all these compounding things that happen, and then it's like, but now who also do I go and talk to? Because even if I'm talking to my friends, some friends are at different levels, and then like some stuff my mom, may talk to her friends about, but it might not actually be able to give an answer. Like, well, my aunt's here today, so I have siblings, but also they have them. So processing grief during COVID with a lot of people, a lot of people's families, they passed, and then you couldn't really process like you normally would, which is like, or some type of, where everybody can come together and everybody say isolate. And then if you have illnesses, you still want to say, like my father says, very isolated, so we know he's depressed, but trying to get him out of the house to do it, he'll talk about it, but it's a lot of procrastination with it. Yeah. But it's a thing where it's like, it's a double-edged sword because if he goes around too many people, he's been sick, that cancer. And so it's like that balance between the two. But I mean, honestly, like you said, nobody's COVID. Now we're here, and now everybody's trying to navigate this new scene, and even most things are still online. So even if people are trying to get help or have their connection, most things are still online. Like I do more telehealth than I do in person. Even though I offer in person, people are just used to being at home. Churches, online. Yeah. Groups, meetings, online. So even if they're trying to get out, is that skill that block there? Like, how do I connect now?
How do I
learn to
go
connect?
back
It's
to
still,
that
right.
way?
online is
Yeah.
still a lack of human interaction.
Right.
I don't get it. I like people in person. So this was better than like we did Zoom. I was like, okay, but I like because I can feed off energy.
Right.
And so with that, it makes
That's gonna be a challenge though, right? For you to help bridge the gap back to being in a normal
Right.
society
Yeah.
versus COVID society.
right.
Even now people are working remotely, and everybody prefers, and I
Yeah.
get it, but it's still,
I don't know, I mean, when we use that word back, that means that we are somewhere that we weren't before and we're trying to get back to that space. And I don't know, at what point do we accept that something is our new normal?
I mean, certain things are out of your control. You can't help it if your employer says you're gonna be working from home 3 days out the week. I mean, that is something
It was
out
our
of your
new-
control.
it was
but-
our new normal when we were in the pandemic, we're out of it now.
Right.
Like when the gyms were shut down, everybody was
Movie
rushing
theaters
to
were
buy
shut down.
Pelotons and all kinds of home.
Streaming services because you aren't going to the
Yeah,
movies.
so
or-
now, but no, stop, don't listen, open up your mouth, listen. I'm sorry.
She's mothering everybody.
But I remember when we quit the gym, then we went back, because
I
we
remember.
missed the human interaction.
Right.
You miss, you like, it's nice to see, even if you're not talking to them, it's nice to see people that you normally see at the coffee shop, on the way to work. It's a sense of comfort, so it's not necessarily a new normal. I mean, it was the way things were, but we have to get back to where we used to be. It wasn't that long ago.
I would say that whenever there's a paradigm shift, there becomes a new normal. A case in point, everybody in this room grew up in a time pre-9/11 where you could walk to the gate. The new normal is that you can't go to the gate. And don't bring anything that you're not supposed to have. Because you used to be able to do those things. Our new normal is that we accept that practice. We accept that behavior, and we'll never get back to just being able to walk up to the great gate. I remember in Arkansas, you could actually literally drive up to the gate in Bentonville or NWA. You could drive up to the gate, and I mean, you were literally 2 seconds outside of running in, and there was no TSA, there was no pre-check. So I would offer that whenever there's a paradigm shift, there has to be a new normal on some level.
On some level, but I mean, I think that's an extreme, and we're talking about an isolated thing versus just general life, like exercising and going to the movies. You know, you don't have to stream. You can go to the movies now. You may prefer to sit on your own couch, but you can go out and get popcorn and sit next to someone. You know, you don't have to, build your gym at home. You can actually join the gym and be around people who are like-minded. So I guess, yes, but no. You know what I mean? There needs to be a hybrid, a bridge back to some sort of
I was
socialization.
gonna say, but
Because it's helpful.
during COVID, at the beginning, everybody was fearful. Of course, it was like it was one level, but then after you started getting used to it,
You become
started
lazy,
learning,
right?
you started learning how to connect in that way of like just doing things virtual, just
Right.
having Zoom calls. Everybody's on their workout equipment and doing that.
Yeah.
And so when everything had to started going back into it, honestly, for some people, it was better than it did to be at home, depending on where they were. However, for some, it's like that isolation, it was easy to avoid. So that avoidance, like, because of whatever somebody's been through, because I don't know if somebody's passed, like going back into that physical connection of being around people, it was easy to avoid being at home. And then
Yeah.
once they get at home, then they're lonely. But that social piece is very hard because some people, they were struggling, even though we were already doing it every day and always out, they were really struggling. But we just didn't know they were struggling. So once they were able to isolate, it was like, or some people say it was being introverts, like they fill up with the energy at home, being by themselves. But it's like now what do you do with that energy now that you pull it? If you don't get out.
Like in COVID, everything went up. The cost of everything went up. If you were in construction, the cost of lumber went up. The cost of sugar went up. So the cost of bread went up. The cost, the eggs, they were like a commodity. And guess what? We're not in COVID and nothing went back down.
Right.
And so, I mean, they're like, oh, you got used to it. You know, you're fine like that. You can pay it, you can buy it, you can afford it. But when it comes to your emotional health, I don't think that that's something that you can just say, oh, you're used to it. You know,
That's the new normal.
yeah, that's the normal. You'll be okay. You know, take it like a champ. I feel like there needs to be some sort of bridge back.
Right.
You know,
Right. And I think I've seen a lot of people in places start to do more things like have activities to try to encourage people to come back and be in person. But it's something about that social anxiety piece that honestly I think a lot of people struggle with because of being in isolation and then going back. Like you're used to certain people being around, but what if that group of people aren't there anymore?
Yeah.
And now you have to meet new people. And honestly, even though COVID was pretty much like 2.5 years of just kind of being isolated, that did a lot for people. It wasn't like 30 minutes or a month of isolation and I jumped back to it. That time really set in, and I don't think people realize how hard it really was going to be to now socialize with everybody at all ages. It's just the younger generation, they were just easy because like, oh, we was already on our technology, so we can stay on technology more. But, you know, for me, like I moved up here in 2019, which I didn't know 2020 shut down. But just the difference in like me one I'm like, you know what, I'm okay if I'm not about to sit go to work. I can sit right here, see all my clients, it'd be good. I mean, it benefited in some ways because now being licensed in another state, I can do telehealth and help more people who want to pick me for their therapist versus I just gotta settle.
Right.
However, in certain things, certain situations, like I can't, and like I'm only seeing this part of you on the camera versus being able to see your whole body to see if like if you're nervous and your hands keep moving.
Right.
But this part is fine.
right.
So I think it's definitely something where you encourage people, but also gotta understand that some people it's gonna actually take longer than expected for them to be more social to get out of that point. Because people will say all the time, I'm lonely, but it's like, okay, until you put some action with it, how can I help you? Because even if you came to counseling, the counseling can only do so much and you're not willing to take those steps. We can educate, but it's still a thing of like, do you really want to get out of your loneliness?
In that same vein, are there things, you know, I know there's yoga, but are there things that I can do to work on my mental health every day? Because it's that important that I am mentally healthy. Are there things that I can do to work on my mental health every day?
I would say journaling, meditation, if you're spiritual, and just because I work with people with different spiritual backgrounds, it's like, how do you tap into your spiritual side? And definitely not being in isolation, doing something like, even if you like being at home, having at least one event where you're doing it, you're having to connect with somebody. Like, and not just go and be in a space, like, you easily come in a bar and sit down, and be around a lot of people, not connect with
Challenge
somebody.
yourself to have a
Right,
conversation.
so actually have something that you connect to, so even if it's volunteering somewhere, you're helping somebody out, or, you know, you join a skate club, everybody goes skating on a day, something where you have to actually talk to somebody, that's not work. People use work as an excuse, and I was like, that's different, I can put on a work face and go in and talk to everybody and leave, and I didn't connect with anybody, because I had a task to do. So now, like, something that you actually have to engage with somebody at least once a week. And you don't have to do it for a long time, but just something. And you'll notice, like, what that is, because everybody has different levels, but you gotta at least connect with somebody.
I think this is like what I wanted to get to right here. This is the meat and potatoes of it all right here. The things that we can do to help prevent ourselves from going down, you know, to the sunken place. You know, what is it? And you're like, challenge yourself. Get out and make yourself do something different than you've been doing.
Right.
You know, actively change how you're feeling.
Right.
Like you say, you can talk about, I'm lonely, I don't feel,
Right.
you know, but what are you doing to change that?
Right.
All right.
But also not being afraid if that's the space that you finally get to, you finally realize that you need to make a change. Don't be afraid of that either. Because some people, they feel shame. They feel shame by like they didn't do it, and now they're in that place, so now I feel shame. Now I don't want to talk to nobody, tell nobody that's what I'm doing. So now I put on this. You know how you see those commercials where it's like they're really depressed, but then they had like this other little face that they put like this in front of their face. It's like that shame keeps you from talking. So if you do get in that place, that's still okay. It's okay not to be okay. It's what you do about it.
It's okay Okay, not to be
It's what you do about it. That's pretty profound, I like that.
I think it's incumbent upon us to, or also I should say, to be our brother's keeper. Sometimes we have to look out for the signs in our family and in our friends and encourage more healthy behaviors. Because a lot of times we see signs and we don't identify those things. And I mean, there's a healthy balance between calling out everything that a person does and seeing things that are just too egregious to let go. But I do think that we have to be more aware of those people around us, because if you talk to anybody that's been through any serious type of trauma, a mental trauma that is, and you know, people are always like, well, I never saw the signs, or these were readily identifiable, but I did not act, I did not say anything. And that's my thought.
Yeah, and I say one thing it is, if you have family members, like, that's one way, if you're a social person, like, just call and check on your family. Sometimes it's not a conversation, it's like, well, I noticed this, sometimes it's more so like, hey, when you gonna come over? And that's, because that's giving some socialization, and you're just seeing what that person is.
That wellness check.
Right, and just come too, it's like, sometimes doing that will make them finally feel comfortable enough to tell you that I need you. Or, like, are there social things? Like, it's not your responsibility, because every person has to make a choice. But it's like, if you know somebody's like, never come, and it's like, how often are you calling that friend? Just say, hey, or, hey, let's get together. Where it's not gonna have to be like in a big setting, but it's not gonna be really. So sometimes that piece too, because sometimes if you say something to a person, they'll change, particularly for you, because they know you watch too much. But then they will still be back in isolation, like, oh, if they don't want to deal with it.
And that's when you say, I need to come lay eyes on you.
Yeah, right, right. And depending on how close you are, like, I'm sure if y'all two were talking, y'all would be like, why haven't you seen you? Why you haven't been here?
Oh,
And you know how to call out the person you're supposed to, but some people, if you're not as close to them, it's harder to be that person to call it out, but it's more so it's like, well, let's just do this, let's just, you know, say it, or like, hey, I'm noticing that you kind of seem more isolated. Like, are you okay? Do you need to talk? Or, you know, what's going on? Sometimes they'll say something, sometimes they won't. Because I've literally seen people fake everybody around them, and then when it came up and they finally wanted to talk, people like, they didn't show, but also they just show it to you. So unless you were living in a house with them to see when they went down, you didn't see them.
We'd like to open it up to the floor, like if you guys have anything that you would like to ask Harry in regard to people that you know that may be struggling with loneliness, isolation, depression. She's here for us.
Okay, don't all go at once.
Right, no more questions, you can only take one at a time.
We're not gonna ask you to write it down.
Asked.
Yeah.
So I'm curious. I wonder if you guys are familiar with this like narrative that this generation is under a lot more like evaluative pressure. Like there's so much self-monitoring about like self-optimization and really bringing out the best of your ability. And I wonder if you think this generation is facing that to a higher degree than maybe your generation or past generations have, and B, has that contributed to the sense of maybe self-isolation and
Okay, I'm gonna have to say
depression?
that's a lot. I'm gonna make sure everybody.
Oh, sure.
I'm sorry that you said all that.
Testing? Maybe not.
Is it on? Can you hear? It's on.
Oh, it's on. Okay.
Yeah.
So my question was, and I work with. I'm a history teacher. I teach at CPS. So I do work with adolescents quite often. And one thing that I found is I wonder if there is a generation of, or this generation, this newer generation, Gen Z, are facing maybe the sense of like constant self-optimization, the sense that like you need to be the best you can be, and every day that maybe you are stagnant or maybe you go backward, right? There's so much self-monitoring and self-surveillance, whether it's through apps or maybe it's through, you know, like counting your steps. Oh, today I counted only 9,000 steps versus yesterday I only did 8,000. Am I getting lazy? Am I blah, blah, blah? Am I not being the best I can? Do you believe that this generation is facing that sense of self-optimization to a higher degree than maybe past generations are? And on a deeper level, do you think that is contributing to this, maybe this deepening sense of loneliness, given that they might be feeling like they're not being the best they can be. They're not striving to be the best they are. They feel stagnant.
I would say definitely for my generation compared to the younger generation.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's because of technology and everything that they see. Because of course on social media, you only put the best things on social media. I do think it's a struggle. Like, so I have, like I said, a mixture of adult clients. So even my clients are in their 20s. It's like this perfectionism. It's like I gotta be. Well, my parents did this. My parents did that. So I gotta do this. Or I gotta be on. Or like my friends, they were all 4.0s. But I have this, so that constant pressure, and then once again, it's because of what they see versus really what's happening. But when you put them in a group of people and everybody starts to talk, they realize everybody has some problems or issues. But it's definitely something where it's like working through, like, your journey is your journey, your race is your race. But a lot of times, the younger generation, they do not see that. That's what I feel from the people that I've talked to and I've met. They're constantly trying to always be better. And I do think for them, that loneliness is because they don't talk about what's really the problem. They only try to make sure that only their best self is shown, which that is hard to do. I don't know anybody that can just walk around and every day be a great day.
And be on 10
Right.
all the time. So that's why it's important for us to let, because it's not just the Gen Zers feeling like that, but it's important everybody knows that they're not alone. It's important for everybody to know that they're not alone. That whatever you're thinking and feeling, 9 times out of 10, your 5 closest people to you are
Right.
thinking and feeling exactly the same thing.
Right.
They maybe are not voicing it, but
Right.
they're feeling the same way.
Right.
The pressure is real though. I mean, I work with our youth. And so I'm mentoring one of the kids that I work with. And I'm like, man, you know, to use your fist, our choice. To use a gun is a choice. And I'm like, you know, the choices you make are gonna determine your outcome. And he looked me dead in my eye and said, hey man, you get your ass whooped and nobody knew. I get my ass whooped and it's on World Star and my cousin from Atlanta like, hey bro, we need to ride. And that's a lot of pressure. And at that point I wasn't equipped to answer that question. But that is a lot of pressure. That is a lot of what we see is that things you used to be able to do in anonymity and become better from it. I mean, I see one of my friends that I've known here for 40 years. And I mean, we could have had a fight at some point in our existence, and by the end of the summer, we would have been right back where we were. Now, things escalate so high
Yeah.
because of social media that there is no chance for us to do anything, or we create situations that we can no longer walk away from. And I do, to your question, to your point, yeah, I believe those things are real. I believe that there is a lot of pressure. I think that social media, and we cater to it, social media plays a huge role in the choices and ultimately the outcomes that we choose and make.
I'd like to add a little bit to that. I believe that, like, on a grand scheme, if you look at it, the cancel culture is a real thing, right? You can get canceled quickly. But I think from a perspective from your peers, if you aren't being your best self, and if you aren't putting on and, you know, I don't know what to call it, but in the know, then they may feel like they're gonna be canceled by their friends. You know what I mean? Like the guy who, you know, uncles call him, I'm gonna need that ride back. You know, you're not representing, you know, the way you should. So that is like more pressure than I think anybody is equipped to deal with. I mean, like, if you are suffering in silence, but then you have absolutely no outlet, even if it's from your peers or your, you know, parents, you know, if it's coming at you from all angles, I feel that is enough to push anybody close to the edge. You have a challenge ahead of you because you're a teacher. You know, I mean, you are in custody of the children longer than their parents are every day. So, I mean, there's a lot of pressure on your shoulders to try and let them vent and still kind of, you know, push them in the right trajectory so that they can succeed. That's an uphill battle, but I feel like it's something that you have to do.
Can I just interject too? My Gen Z daughter is working the YouTube
The
live.
camera here.
So she wanted me to tell you guys that the social media plays a part in how they feel too, because it is a constant comparison.
Yeah.
Even even if it's not self-inflicted, I guess, just everybody else comparing, like, this is what they're doing, why aren't you doing it? So social media plays a big part of that too. Thank you, Sloan.
And Sarah isn't here, your daughter, but she made that exact comment for the millennials. So the generation Z and the millennials have that in common. But I'm gonna take it even further. Our generation suffers from the same delirium.
Yeah, we do. We do.
I think it's just different for each generation. Cause I remember when Facebook first came out, because it was only for college students. Because it was new, because it came out when I was in college. And I was like, oh, okay. Then I got off of it because, you know, stuff started getting crazy. And then, you know, because all the started letting the younger kids on and everything like that. So now, when everybody else got on it,
Yeah.
because of like marketing for business, I got back on. I'm like, what is this? And what do you do with this? And how do you do this? So, like, I'm out of the loop on that, but me and my friends, we didn't care as much about that because it was new. But now it's like, this is, I think my mom is on Facebook. But she'll talk. so she talks, and they'll talk about different things. A lot of times they're just watching different reels of stuff, but it's like,
Right.
I don't even engage back to it because I'm like, the few times I'm on Instagram when they're too long, I'm just like, why am I questioning this? Like, I'm at least self-aware to know, like, all of a sudden I was fine, but now suddenly I'm questioning, I'm like, what? Let me put this down
Yeah.
and see. But people who, that's all you've been on, you can even see how it, like, guides you to, like, question you. But it's like, you was fine today until you opened up your phone.
And so there lies another behavior issue, right? Something that people can stop if it's leading to anxiety that makes them feel badly about themselves.
Right.
Where they feel like I'm not good enough to be around everybody
Right.
because I don't feel good about me anymore.
Right. Right.
Compared to supermodel on Instagram.
Right. And it still goes back to self-awareness stuff.
Yeah.
Because it's a thing where I'm just like, can you just fast or take a break
Stay off that
just
phone.
for 2
Yeah.
weeks and see what it is. That was something that I went to the other day and I was like, what would happen if you didn't have your phone for a day? And I was just
Oh my
like,
goodness.
that happened the other day. And I was like, oh, that's peaceful. And I
It's
was
a
just
whole
like,
challenge
here,
right now.
keep
That
both
if
of
you
them.
aren't on your phone for 1 month, they will give you $10,000. My daughter told me. They give you a phone, it's like a flip phone. They take your phone, put it in a lockbox. You cannot touch it, and you can be on this flip phone for a certain amount of time every day. But you will get 10 grand if you can do it for 1 month. They like sign you up.
I would do that.
No, hold on, wait a minute. Y'all smart people. Somebody like, they ain't take my iPad, they ain't take this, you know, so
I'm
no,
sure
no.
they have security measures for that. Yeah.
But I'm telling you how we process. We were like, no, did you mean all social media? Did you mean
my
just the
business
phone?
phone?
Right, so you know, we all on some, you know, let me do this a little bit.
No, I could do that one. I do it. Now, back in the day, maybe not, but now, because of the work that I do, like most times when I get done working, I don't even talk, I don't do like, you know, as long as
Shut
my
down.
son is okay, you good. I can give all my phone, my computer and everything for a month and be like, "Oh, just take a break. But yeah, it does. That impact is interesting how we continue to go in that direction because technology is a beautiful thing. However, it's just
It's a blessing and a curse.
right.
But ultimately, I think we get out of it what we put into it. And
Numb to that, and then a lot of us are so used to that and accustomed to that when
You actually help somebody that's next to you. So it was like, you see a lot of the younger generation, they'll at least talk about it. They're like, oh yeah, I'm going to counseling, I'm going to see my counselor, or I see, you know, but I also have like some of like my people that are older than me, like 2 generations older than me that I see, and it's like, because they finally talk about it in their house and make it normalized, like with anything, that's the only way we're going to get breakthrough, especially within our community, which has at least been talked about more on TV, different stars and stuff like that talk about depression, talk about just mental health struggles. But honestly, until we talk about it, like today, just having this talk, whoever sees it, at least it's something else being talked about. But it honestly, until you try it and understand, like counseling is like going to the doctor, because mental health is your brain, let me go back. Your brain is an organ. Now, we don't always like going to the doctor just to see any other organ and go, well, until it's like finally like, oh, I had this heart attack, now I'm finally going to the doctor. Or I got diabetes, now I'm finally going to the doctor to get medication. So it's been hard enough just with our culture, just going to the doctor on a regular basis. But it's still something, as we talk about it more, you start seeing people go and do it more and not be ashamed. Somebody got to start the talk, especially like in generations where it's like, you know, I've talked my mom into going, I talked my dad into going. So if you have kids, I'm sure somebody might talk to you as parents, but it's just a thing to try. Like I have clients that are in their 70s now. This is the first time they ever walked into a counseling room. And the thing is, what I try to do is try to make it the best experience for them, because I know it's hard for them to even show up.
So you're saying that we need to normalize accessing mental health services
Right.
and make it okay in our community, starting in our homes and things
Right.
like that?
Just start with the conversation. And then understand, and then when you're looking for a therapist, also, I see the stigmatism like, well, if they're not black or if they're not another minority, I'm not gonna see them. My counselor that helped change my life was a white woman, an older white woman. And just because they're not in our culture don't mean they can't help. But I mean, I get it. It also is you got people not in our culture that do hurt. And so, but you got people in our culture that actually hurt too. I remember when I first became a counselor, the first thing people were saying is like, oh, you responded back before 2 weeks? Because a lot of times, like, we got black men and women looking for counselors, but then it takes them forever to get a good counselor. And so, like I say, we at least just start talking about it in the churches, start talking about it in the community. That right there is the start. Then if you need, you know, to go further and find a counselor like that, then like that's when you find the resources. But if we don't talk about it, most of my clients don't come from social media because I'm never on social media. I should do better, but I don't be on there because that's the thing I just don't like. But it's because of word of mouth. And that's because my thing is like, if I can't help you, if I'm not your counselor, I'm more than happy to help you find somebody that probably can be there. But it starts with just a conversation.
I think that the world gets fixed one person at a time. I think that we are very grandiose in how we expect the world to get fixed. We think that there's going to be like a PowerPoint presentation followed by a proclamation, followed by everybody getting in line, and Martin Luther King and Martha and the Vandellas come out and sing how great life is, and we all fall in line. But I think that we have to have a greater sense of ownership, and let me control my immediate surroundings. Let me help the 5 people that are in my face. Let me help the 5 people that I really have voice with. I mean, I know most of you are in here, but it's 20 people 20 blocks from here that never heard of me and care even less. So I think that it's incumbent upon us to do those things that we're actually capable of doing. I don't know that we have a miracle. You know, I always tell people that I may not be the person that changes the world, but maybe I spark the mind of the person that changes the world. And I think that we have to approach it like that, and we have to kind of rein back in those grandiose ideas of, you know, I'm gonna give a speech, a sermon, or a PowerPoint presentation, and everything is gonna be all better. That's not how things in my world work.
Anybody else have a comment or a question? Let's give them the mic real quickly.
Yes.
Devon.
Here, Mark.
Thank you. So following up to his question about the stigma, as we as a community do search for counselors, what are some of the things or questions that we should be asking? Because I think that because it's, I would say, relatively new for us to talk about it and be comfortable about it, how do we distinguish or differentiate a bad counselor from a good counselor? You know, some people, oh, well, I'm in counseling, but we really don't have these guardrails in place to make sure that we are progressing, to make sure that they are a good match. To your point, we think, well, they have to be black or look like us. So what are some of your tips for that?
I would just say one is it's over 70 types of modalities when it comes to therapy. So like if you would go to your normal doctor's office, if they were rude, you wouldn't stay there. So do a consultation. Like I know you have some places where it's like, okay, we'll take your information, the counselor will call you. You're like, no, I want to talk to the counselor. Like have your boundary in the sense of like, I want to talk to who it is. And then go a couple of sessions and see if you have a vibe with them. If you don't, go look for a different counselor. And one question I always tell people to ask a counselor is like, do you go to counseling? Because it's no way for us to do our job and it not affect us in some type of way. Like I said, when I get done with work, I don't want to talk to nobody. I'm like, I mean, my son followed me, but I don't want to talk to nobody. So it's like, but I go to counseling. My counselor, my clients know. I'm like, my counselor name Ashley, I'm gonna see her this week, don't worry, y'all. Like, I make that known, but you wanna, like, those type of questions. And then what's important, is it a male or female? And it's okay to be picky. I mean, honestly, it's hard to find a particular black male counselor. It is. However, they are out there. And the thing is, like, also just taking accountability, like, once you find your counselor, show up. Because if you don't show up in the room, they can't make it what's happening. They don't know your life story. So you can't be vulnerable, then it's gonna be very hard for them to help you. But definitely, you know, your important questions in asking, would be like, you know, do they go to counseling? What is their modality of therapy? You know, what is their, so some people, and don't be afraid that if the person is older than you or younger than you. Like, and if, for counselors, because like I'm an LCPC, some people are like, well, you don't have your doctor. I was like, well, I'm licensed as a counselor and I have all these other credentials. So it doesn't matter if they have a doctor or not, like it's a difference, like a clinical psychologist, they're all doctors. And then you have your social workers. So depending on what you're looking for and to do, counselors, we're trained to counsel. Social workers are more so like your whole entire lifespan. Like they can do counseling as well, but it might be for people that's like struggling with like finances, different things, so they need that social work aspect. Clinical psychologists, they do testing, they also counsel as well, but you might need testing from them. Psychiatrists are the ones that do medication, and that's the biggest thing. I get people in counseling, but medication is a whole other level. And I always tell people, your brain is an organ. So you need to do whatever you need to do to take care of it for your now, and then worry about the later after you take care of your now. But a lot of things is also look at the websites. They have way more websites now. They give you more information about their counselors, like therapists for black girls. So even if you're not a female, you can still look on that site for Miss Black Therapist. And then you got the Chicago Black Therapist Directory. So it's like, and if you know somebody that's in counseling, ask them like, hey, who was your counselor and how did you find them? But the main thing is like, know some of the things of your personality that you like if you were talking to a friend, like who would that friend be that you would connect to? And what are the things about them that you like? And that's ultimately what you're looking for in a counselor. You know, you want them to be able to have boundaries with you where they're not like talking to you just like a friend, but you want to have some type of relationship with them. So that's a relationship. And ultimately, usually a long-term relationship, depending on how long you stay with it.
Any other takers? We have, just real quick, give you the mic, so we can hear you. The bottom.
Here, Sheila. You're welcome, Sheila.
I was just going to sort of piggyback off of this gentleman. As an educator, there's an ongoing joke that we have at school that says we wouldn't want our kids to be our nurses down the line around the corner. And I think this generation of all of us sitting here now, I think we all need to pause because we need to be a better example for the younger ones that are ahead or that are behind us. I talk with my kids in my classroom. I have no problem with closing the door. Whatever happens in Mr. McCrae's room stays there, and the kids understand that. But I try to encourage my kids to have open conversations with their parents. Not about their issues, because I don't think their parents necessarily are equipped necessarily to deal with those issues. But about, maybe I went to, or that young person went to our school counselor, or went to the school psychologist, or the school social worker. I encourage my kids to do that, because I see the traumas. I hear the traumas every day that these kids are going through. And so I think we as collectively here in this room, we need to be better examples for our kids and the generations coming behind us. Because we can't keep looking, gun control. It's a mental health issue.
Right.
It has nothing to do with lobbying for gun control. It's a mental health issue. And until we start pouring back into that as a generation, giving back and reaching back and pulling them with us and pulling them up, we're gonna keep having the problem. And they're gonna be our nurses, and they're gonna be our doctors, who are gonna be so ill-equipped to do anything.
Right.
And they're gonna be the ones teaching our kids or our grandkids. So I think collectively, we need to take more responsibility and make that a thing.
Are you, just out of curiosity, having these same conversations with our peers, your friends? Are you recognizing some of these same kinds of, I don't know, issues where you feel like there's a disconnect? You know?
Absolutely. And I had to start with myself because it was my daughter, my oldest daughter, that actually checked me.
Okay.
And there were different things in my life that she's like, Mom, really? Mom, really? So who are you talking to and what time are you getting there? You know, Sam, get out of my face, whatever. And I would totally, disregard her.
Yeah.
But then I had to check myself because I can't go and then talk to students about that. And I can't, I had to pause even talking to some of my friends because there are things that their kids will come and say to me, or their friends are in my classes, or their friends' kids are in my classes, and I'm like, all right, all this is going on.
Right.
But I had to stop pointing fingers, and I had to take that responsibility for self first. And so I do that with my friends, and I have very, very cosmetic or open friends. Yeah, thanks, Gary. That would be the one to call me or send me a text. Hey, I just need to lay eyes on you.
Right.
And I'm grateful for that because I'm that person that, nope, I got this. Because as women, particularly women of color, oh, we got this. And that is the biggest, sorry ladies, that's the biggest lie this side of the Mississippi.
You know?
Because we don't want to always be the strong one. We don't always want to be that type A personality. I can do it, and I'm going to do it. But then I close that door and it's like,
So you have these tough conversations with your peers, your friends, people who are in your circle that you can actually reach out and touch, and are they receptive to this though? Is
we
my
have
question.
it with each other.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had to sort of go through the Rolodex and throw out some of those folks because they're not receptive. But yet you're gonna come and talk to me about your child. I can't.
No self-accountability there.
No self-accountability, and that's a big thing, especially at my age. I am not about to sit up here and lie. I ain't got time for that. I'm not gonna sit up here and try to be something I'm not. I don't have time for that. I'm too old for that. And so I want my friends to also feel that freedom to be in that space to say, hey, this is who I am. Take me or leave me, this is who I am. And I think our generation is keeping up with the Joneses.
A lot of that is. You're
Yeah,
right.
and that's our generation, that's our clique, our little cliche, if you will. So I think we just have to be better examples. I learned that, having daughters, I can't tell them to be natural. If I'm chasing, the hair dye bottle, I can't be that example.
Wait a minute. One topic at a time, Missy. One topic at a time. Wait a minute.
Because you definitely wearing it well, my dear.
Y'all sorority sisters, work it out.
And I already peeped that Gary. But I mean, at the end of the day, we have to be better examples for what we want to come behind us.
Absolutely. For the legacies. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely, definitely for the legacies, and it's got to start with us.
Yeah.
I was going to speak to one thing because that's even the research that I'm doing in my doctoral program for women, particularly minority women, is the thing of like I have to do it all. And understanding because I saw my mom, I saw my grandma do it, but understanding you saw your mom and your grandmother's trauma.
Yep.
Not that you saw them like these phenomenal, like for me, like I've seen the stuff that my mom had to do for me and my sister. And then for me, I'm like, the cleaners, they about to come because, I'm not clean. I didn't work all week. So I worked enough to pay for the cleaners to come to my house. And I could be okay with that. But I also still have people looking like, so you're not cleaning my house? No, I'm not. I'm tired. I've done these other things. And it's not that I can't do it. It's that, like, why do I have to do everything? And when we, started talking with this depression, it's like a lot of my clients are CEOs or in these higher positions, and like the women, like they're struggling with depression, but they're functioning because they know how to just shut down and just do work.
Compartmentalize.
But it's a thing with like they have no boundaries,
Yep.
and they have no community.
Yep.
And then they find it hard to connect, and like you said, how you have your friends who you can be real with. It's like they're so used to being on, and particularly being a black woman in these high positions. It's like we already get stigmatized to be like, oh, you're the angry black woman, or you're too emotional. And so now I really have to be on and learning how to just be okay with just not being okay all the time.
And then also, I think too, we have to teach what true self-care is.
Right.
Because, like my daughter, again, that oldest one, Mom, what are you doing the day after work? And I'll, in a second, I want to get my nails done, or I'm going to do this, or I want to do that. She goes, no. What are you doing for you? No, see, I want to get my nails done. No. I know what that's about. And she'll call me out like that. No, Mom, you want to get your nails done because they look bad and you don't want people to see what your hands going to look. Okay, Samantha.
So is she most like you?
Oh, look, for your doctor, your thesis, I'll drop her number one. Y'all can have some conversations. But you're right, they've seen my traumas. But they've also been the ones to hold me accountable to setting boundaries. Because I have the older one, and she notices I don't set boundaries with my youngest one. And my oldest one has held me accountable to that.
Yeah.
And that has now poured over to other relationships. I have boundaries, even with my 95-year-old mother, who's probably having a fit right now because I'm not sitting at her house looking at her face. But no, Mom, this is what I want to do right now.
Right. Yeah.
And so, that self-care has got to be, I think that's something that's got to be made. Okay, if you don't want to clean your house, girl, please don't.
Right.
And it, like you said, it's got to be deemed okay. I don't feel like doing it.
Right.
And it's not because I'm lazy, it's because I want to sit.
Right.
I want to journal. I want to call my friends.
Right.
I want to go work out, whatever it is for you. And you have deserved that. You deserve that.
Right.
So I want to ask a question. Either of you can answer it because you sound like you've done a lot of research. But you're licensed. I ran across a term called imposter syndrome, and I want to know. I mean, these buzzwords, real, behaviors, stigma, all of that. I want you to kind of make like imposter syndrome make sense to me because I have an idea of what it means, but I don't know exactly what it means. So you can make that transition
For me, definitely when I first became a therapist, it was so weird. I had to pray about that. It's one of those things where it's like, I'm in it, I'm doing it, and I have the backing, I have the education, I have like, if you look at it on paper, I have everything that it is that I need. But something about when I'm in the position is this deep insecurity. It's like, do I really supposed to be here? Is somebody looking at me? They gonna find me out. Cause I don't really know. So this is like, right, I have everything and I'm just standing in it, because your cousin Crystal, she gets on my face all the time. About when I doubt stuff, she was like, but you're the real anyway. This is what you naturally do. You're naturally already in this position, but your insecurity in the back of your head is like, oh, so y'all do the podcast. But it's like every time you finish, you're like, you believe you're okay? How did I sound? So now you're questioning everything about yourself, like, oh, I really not supposed to be here. Even though when you're doing it, you're doing it. And everybody else can recognize it, but it's something in you that's like, wow. Maybe they
Wow.
So everybody has a different level of it.
Yeah.
And I've heard it talked about in ways, but for me, that's what it's always been for me.
I need to read more about that. Wow, that's interesting. Because you're never, it sounds like that person feels like they're never good enough.
Right. It goes, it plays into self-worth. And then, how do you affirm yourself? And then too, a lot of people, I think they're so caught up in what they do versus who they are. Because those are two different things.
They are not the same, absolutely. Thank you. Any other questions, any other comments, any other concerns while we have her here to kind of shed light on these issues? No?
Guess we can switch to topic number 2.
Yeah, we can switch to the next topic, which is also very interesting.
Yeah, something that has been on the rise. It's called LAT, living apart together. As many couples who are getting married and choosing to live separately. So whether you are, some people that I know are living in different states, but they're married, but some people are living in the city of Chicago and have never lived in the same household, never under the same roof. So,
And successfully as well.
successful,
Right.
it is,
Let's put that out
it
there.
is truly on the rise, and, it is not just with our generation, it is with the younger, the millennials too. And they're trying to maintain their own level of freedom and their own lifestyle, but they find that they're good partners and they want to make the marriage work, and the best way they know how to do that is to live separately.
So,
On a personal level, I know people that have done it both ways. I know people that, they got married, they decided, you know what, you have a nice place, in order for us to be successful at doing this is how we're gonna do it. And I have specifically ex-coworker who, they both had very nice houses, they both were invested in those communities and that lifestyle, but they wanted to be together. And it worked for them. I mean, they are in, I'm not gonna put a number on it because I don't wanna identify the person, but they are making it work. And it works for them.
I think some people do it by choice, obviously, and then some people do it by force. You know, if you have an employer, but they relocate you to, another state,
Boise, Idaho.
and but your home is obviously Chicago, then, to maintain, your income level and not to have to uproot your family and sell the house or maybe take a loss on it, by force you are living apart, which I think if you didn't choose it, it may not be so great, you know what I mean? But if you are choosing to do this, and maybe even by force, you may find out, wow, this really works, who knows?
To play devil's advocate, for the people who choose the lifestyle, live in a little park together and be married, and they go into it and say, okay, yes, I want to marry you, I love you, this is great, but you snore, I can't take it, and I want to, and we don't cohabitate well, but we love each other and we want to be together for the rest of our lives. I always think, well, why get married? Because to me, because I'm so old-fashioned in this belief, it's sharing everything, and you're under the same roof, and, I mean, I can sleep through an earthquake, so the snoring wouldn't bother me, but, I don't understand how it works so well for people who are in the same city and choose that lifestyle, but I'm not judging, I do wonder, like, well, why get married, or is this person truly for you if you can't make it work under the same roof? Right.
I think you bring up an interesting concept, though, because
And
you
feel
say,
free to jump in.
oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry. No.
No.
Go ahead. I'm going to finish this. Right.
I think we all have our own different constructs of what a marriage should be. And I think that they're shaped by our experiences, our beliefs, in some cases our religion. And I think that as we have, gotten older, we found out that, some things that we might have thought, felt, or even lived were not necessarily the optimal way of doing things. And that's just my thought. I'm looking at you.
I would just say, of course, being brought up in one marriage and then just being in a religious household, like you're like supposed to be in the same house. And so for me personally, it would be the piece of like, will part of being in the same household was learning how to connect and work through your problems so you can grow stronger. So it's a little bit of avoidance there, not saying that I don't believe or I can't see it not working, but it's like the strength of what your marriage could be. I don't see how you would deal and go through the issues together because it's such an easy avoidance of like, you just all freedom about it here.
Go back to your corner.
Right. And me and my husband have lived apart before, but once again, it was by like I moved south and we were together and that's when we met and then I got pregnant and his job relocated.
Right,
So
so
for
that forced
years,
It was temporary.
right, he was here and I was still in Alabama. And I mean, it worked because we were busy doing everything. I mean, like I
But
said, I was
it wasn't
right,
forever
it wasn't
either.
forever, so it was closed. And I do know some people where because of that or because they have a job that travels so much, that's what they have to do. But I, think about military things.
Right.
It's like, but at the same time, I also hear like the things of like the stress of them not being together in sports.
Right.
Somebody that's choosing it, I feel like because they choose it, of course, it probably seems simpler because I'm making the actual knowledgeable choice. And we're talking about it, we're talking it out. But I do think, because at first it was just, you just sleep in a different bedroom at home.
Right.
But now it's like, now you totally going to two different houses.
Right.
I was like, I feel like there's no way you can't say it's not some avoidance there.
Right. I agree.
And then also it's easier for bad things to slip in because now you're not even in the same household.
Have you had any clients that are living the lap
Um,
life, or is this?
No, not actually by choice. None of my clients have done it by choice. It's either by like, we trying to kill each other, so that's why we're in a different household.
Right.
We notice that it works this
Right.
way. But ultimately they would like to be back together, but they're just like, okay, it's better for the kids that we're not arguing all the time that we have a separate household. But nobody just like, this is what we're gonna get married and we're gonna stay in the same house.
I was privy to a situation where there were two people, and one is my childhood friend and one was my coworker. And they both had pretty nice houses and pretty nice lifestyles prior to the marriage. And they went into it knowing that they were never going to live or not, cohabitate permanently. And they are making it work. I am so proud of them. And I don't think
They're in
that,
the same city?
yeah.
Okay.
Well, one is in Hickory Hills and one is in Powell's Heights, but, that's next door. But within that, I'm proud of them because I don't know that I could have done it. And I'm privy to both of them because one is my coworker, one is my childhood friend. And so I see it from a lot of different ways, but they have been able to make it work.
Your trust has to be on 10.
Right.
I mean, they fight the same battles as everybody else. I mean, they work through stuff. They
What's
have.
the schedule, Gary? I mean, when do they see each other? Is it every other weekend? Like, you have custody of,
I would
you know.
I would love to be able to honestly answer that question, but the thing that I always tease her about is that whenever they get horny. So I don't know the answer to that question, but that's the joke that I joke with them about.
Right. You're like, well, I can't. I'm having friends over. What friends? I don't know about it.
Does anybody have any experience with that life?
I don't have experience with that. But I'm about to start my master's program, right?
Congratulations.
And I know how intense school can be, and I can imagine as intense as the bachelor's was, this is going to be even more intense. And I work full time, and I got a second job working at the school, so
You're busy.
I'm busy. I also am past all of that dating stuff like that, but I would like to have somebody, and I could see that if I do, and I get to that point, I am not going to want to live with them. I am so glad I came here today because I'm hearing an option that just works perfectly. Because I don't have to. We don't have to live together. Because I'm going to be busy studying. I teach another class. I'm just not going to have time for all of that. But I want some of it.
Hey, what about when you're done with the masters? What about when it's over? Are you going to be able to transition back to wanting to be in one house, one home, share everything?
I'm not closed-minded
But
or
that's not a
closing
yes.
off any. I
Maybe, depends.
I mean, I guess it would depend on how she feels as well. I want to be open to her feelings and things along those lines. But that is something that I can enter into and let it, hey, this is what I got going on probably for the next 2-3 years. I'm gonna be busy doing this. And
To me, you know, and I'm not gonna say I'm old fashioned, that was Kim's word, but I feel like I am traditional. So I'm not old fashioned.
Potato, potato.
Synonymous.
But I am traditional, and so I kind of am getting this feeling,
Mhm.
all right, no judgment, but I am getting the feeling of a little like, I can get the milk without buying the cow. And I don't know, I don't know her, but I'm like, girl, whoever you are.
I don't know her either. I haven't met her. That's the issue. We haven't met.
I'm gonna throw my friend of 40 years of life raft here. As we approach and grow in the things that we do and say, what happens is that we have to look at being successful. And in being successful, we have to do things sometimes in different ways than what is traditional. I love your ability to embrace, I want to be successful, because that's what I'm claiming for you in this situation. Don't say anything else about that. So, within that, you're saying that, hey, I'm willing to look at this in a different way, because here's what I want, here's where I need to get to, here's where I am, and maybe in getting to where I want to be, it's not traditional. It's not the way that things have always been. I want to try to look at this differently because I want what I want. I want to be successful at doing what I'm doing, and I want to accomplish my goal.
Thank you.
All
Appreciate
right,
it.
whatever. Back to buying the cow.
No, it's not that. As I said, we haven't met yet. I don't, but I can't.
But you don't,
approach
it
this.
sounds like you are unsure, and I'm just, you know, feeling you out. That you're unsure if you're even gonna bring your wallet. Like you are like, I'm gonna bring a cup.
No.
I'm gonna drink some, but I don't even know if I have any
No,
intentions
no.
on buying the cow.
Here's the thing.
I'm just
I
wondering.
am embracing the institution of marriage.
Mm-hmm.
There's no doubt about that part. I believe that there needs to be, like I said, all of this dating part and hey, we going steady. Let's go and let's get to it. Okay. And then when we get to that, but that there can be a space where I am able to pursue my career goals, my community goals, dreams that will help us as a couple elevate, and they don't necessarily have to meet the standards that other people have set. I know for me, my happiness has come through some self-determination. I used to chase happiness based on what other people thought happiness was. That I just don't have the same definition of
And you
what feels
shouldn't.
good.
And you shouldn't.
So for me, that pursuing those educational goals, those career goals, that will help me be happy. Hopefully I will meet someone that shares that, and we can make it work without having to necessarily cohabitate.
Right. Well, the good thing is that you don't know who she is already.
I don't
You
know who she
like
is.
you haven't met
I
her.
don't-
And
yeah.
so you have already redefined what happiness looks like to you and for you. So you get to take all this happiness and be like, this is my happy. Can you match my happy with this? You know what I mean? And if she can, then that's your woman.
Yeah, I'm looking for her. If you happen to know her, send her my direction.
I'm a P-E-N-G-U-I-N. Anyway.
I don't know. I think we started off the conversation in the mental health space talking about isolationism and depression.
Yeah.
We were talking about isolationism that we were forced into without any conversation because of COVID, and how that is wreaking havoc on us internally, whether we want to accept it or not. And then the synergy that comes from being in community, and how do we get people to realize that, and realize that your gut health, your brain health, and all these other things may not just be because you're sick, but it's because you are isolated and you are somewhere all the time by yourself, and you have convinced yourself that the 33 people that are following you on Facebook really are your friends, which they are not necessarily. And then when we get to marriage, we're looking at lifestyles, which completely obliterates the possibility for synergy in relationships, and it completely negates the possibility of those things that are going to grow because you are in space with someone else. So at some point, I think we have to decide whether or not people do actually need people. and whether or not we really do need to be touched physiologically, emotionally, mentally, and what is
Spiritually.
that with spiritually, and what is it that we then get out of that, whether we are sitting next to each other in church or whether we're laying next to each other in bed 7 nights a week because we're married and that's what we do. And there are some things and some fruits that are going to come out of that over the long haul, whether it's that my gut feels better, I don't have a migraine, or something happens in the marriage, like I thought I was getting a master's degree, but I actually was able to get a PhD in 3 years because she had my back. I just think we need to actually start looking at, what is the benefit of people being with people? And how do we start peeling away at the onion and getting back to the blessing and the joy and the love that happen when people are actually
Connected.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Georgette, my father used to always preach to me about, he said, son, you have to have friends in this life that are smarter than you. I think he's talking about you. Pretty sure. I'm confident he was talking about you. But I would love our therapist to address what she said.
Actually, you said what I was going to say. You said what I was going to say about the thing of just like this connection. That's why I was like, I feel like when you're not in the same household, especially if it's not by like force because of something, and you're choosing it, you're also choosing to avoid some of the connection you're supposed to have because growth comes with growing pain. So some of the things are like, well, I can go back to my own house. You're avoiding. Yes, you still have arguments. That's just like when dating before you got married, you weren't together. You had arguments. But it's a whole other thing when you get married, you live in the same household. It's a whole other thing when you're constantly with this person. But it helps develop America. It's so much individualism, separation, then you got COVID, and it just keeps getting worse and worse. And then you go to some other countries where it's like the whole family living at one house. And it's like, from that, yes, there's some things that, it's codependency, higher probably there because the whole family's there. But it's some other pieces that makes a huge difference. I love that I had a huge family on my grandmother's side, and we always did things together. I love when I came up here and had that connection versus I go to another side of my family and they barely see each other, barely talk. Because it's like, now I done seen some things on my grandmother's side, as my aunt witness to, that you'd be like, oh yeah, they crazy. It's okay. But that's my family though. But any of those are memories that you keep and connect. And it's like, there's no way, we're humans, we are made to connect. I don't care whether you want to do it spiritually, scientifically, we're made to connect.
Yeah.
And it's like, so now we're finding more and more ways to justify why it's okay to be alone. And you see pride and being selfish, those are going up on the rise because it's like, well, this is mine. You can have this part of me, but you can't have this part of me. So how are you calling that a marriage?
Yeah.
Not saying people can't make it work. I'm sure people are doing it, but it's like, it's still limitations to that.
Right. I mean, I think also, like, there's this, is it on Netflix, The Blue Zones? It's a 4-part or whatever series on what are the healthiest parts in the world. And this guy went on this thing to figure out where were people living the longest with the least health disease indicators, and what were the commonalities in those spaces. And as he went, Okinawa, Japan, all these different places, the commonalities, families living together, laughter, eating together, being together, joy. And, in addition to not eating stuff that was in plastic and all the other kind of stuff that we know also shorten our lifespans. But there actually are some benefits to people being with people.
Absolutely.
And not in a dysfunctional way, you on edge all the time. But, in terms of the joy factor and in terms of the synergy that comes from that, that has helped, whether the community was a poor community in Central America, not necessarily with all the frills that we have here in the U.S., or a well-off community in Italy. The difference in terms of the blue zones versus the south side of Chicago was them actually living in community together. And there's something to be said for that. And so, at some point we have to look, is our isolationism even helping us sit next to each other on the airplane? Absolutely not. We've got some issues that we are developing as a society and as a culture, and a lot of it, I think, is coming from this forced isolationism that is not benefiting us.
Yes, I believe that anything that you do for a long period of time, you are going to hone in on those skills. And with where we are today and what we've been through in the last few years, I think we've all developed our selfish skills to the highest degree. Everybody knows how to be selfish really, really, really well. But when you are in a family, when you are with siblings or cousins or whoever it is, when you're interacting with people on a consistent basis, you get to learn how to develop those other skills like compromise and compassion and empathy and love, and you experience joy outside of your own self. You know what I mean? You get to, there's something in people that, I don't know if it's endorphins, I don't know if it's something related to that, but you feel good when you help other people. It makes you feel good when you can nurture something, whether it's a pet or a plant, but you feel good. And when you don't interact with people, when you are isolated from people, you are depriving yourself of this growth.
Altruism.
So if I have an 84-year-old father and a sister who graduated from Duke, got her Juris Doctorate from Northwestern, and post-pandemic has evolved into some serious and persistent mental illness. And I choose to stay in a home with my father and my sisters and the rest of it. And this is the home that I choose to be in so that I can support them while I'm doing the school thing and everything else. And if this is the environment that I feel most full, where I'm taking care of my family members because my mom has passed, and I really feel that this is what she would have me to do. But I'm meeting people that are, well, you're not back, you're not in there, you need to have your own place, and I can afford to be in my own place. It's not that. I choose to be here with them to help support them because family is important.
Right.
So I can choose this lifestyle, and if I happen to meet someone along the way that can appreciate that, hey, well, yeah, and they have a place that maybe I can escape sometime because, I'm the caregiver.
Right.
So I need somebody that can be that other part that supports and we can grow together.
Hey, man, I want to speak to that because I just went through that same thing. I just cared for both of my dying parents, and it was the single greatest thing that I did in my life. And I want to, I knew, and I mean, God didn't give me a lot of wisdom, I learned things along the way, usually the hard way. But on that, He gave me wisdom. I wanted to know in my heart that I had done everything that I wanted to do, that I could do. And I messed up probably equally as much stuff as I could fix. But it was the greatest single thing that I've done in my adult life. And I've done a few things, not a lot, but it was the greatest thing that I could have ever done to be able to say this sentence right here. I did everything that I could do. And I've seen other families where a person didn't do everything that they can do. And I'm going to identify that person for you if they're in your family. That is the person that, oh, mama, no, please. They're trying to jump down in the grave. It's the person, oh, Lord, help me, take me now. No. You had that chance. It's the greatest thing that for me, I can't tell you. For me, it was the greatest thing that I ever did. It was the greatest thing that I ever did in my life. I would do it all over again. If you offer me a winning Powerball ticket versus this, I'll be like, man, tell your story walking. I got this. That's my advice. That's what I went through. That's what I saw. That's what I did.
And King, you have an 84-year-old dad. You have only one shot at it. You know what I mean?
Right.
You don't get a do-over. You don't get a second chance at it. You don't get to make amends for it with that person. You get one shot. You got to go all in and give it everything you have. Everything that you are is because of the sacrifice that your parents made for you. So this is your, as I call it, it's my honor to be able to give back to, right now I'm in, a position again of caretaking. My grandmother just turned 104, so I understand but this is all you have. This opportunity to be your best self and to give your best self. So whoever doesn't appreciate that in your life, if they're giving you judgment or kickback from it, then they just aren't your person.
Right.
You know.
Right.
And I was gonna say, like, even when you were talking about like just connecting and having, like, so you do meet the person that understands, but they have their space. I'll see why y'all wouldn't be in the same house, because they're gonna respect the fact that that is your first priority. But it's also unfortunately the end to that first priority at some point.
Yeah.
And so be okay with that, because yeah, if they live the new goal, but this is your highest priority because that's your father. And you know, and you take your sister, and they need to understand that, because that's who you are, and if they don't understand that, then that's not your person. And then eventually, you know, as things change, like you might notice they do come around, they do help more, but they stay in their space because they know eventually, like when your father passed and when things change, you might not want to be in that same house anymore. So now you have this other place to go to. So I think that's a little different from you just dating, knowing, be like, hey, we're just gonna stay separated. Right now, it's like, it's the respect of like you're doing it, because it'll be different if you were already married and then you had the family, then you moved your dad in, and then they didn't want to stay, they wanted to separate. That would be different from where you are now.
There's one more thing I would just like to put out there a little bit, because we kind of got sidetracked a little bit, but they're actually married the two subjects together. We have, but lack. So I just kind of want to speak to, like, for people who are choosing it, or people who are doing it because of employment or things that are out of their control. I know for a fact that people can not always be in the same household, live in the same house, but work will take you away. That there are things that you can do to stay connected, so that you aren't feeling like you are living separately. I'll give you, but you live in hotels sometimes because your job takes you away from home. But if you wanted to stay connected to the person that you are with, you know, you can do what my parents did, right? They watched television together while they were in the hotel. You know, they were watching The Bachelor. They were doing things together, even though they were physically in two different places. You don't have to just, like, be apart. You know, if that's not your choice, you can make it so that you still are, like, cohabitating through the phone, maybe, I don't know. But ultimately being connected. Yeah. It does. Everything worth having is worth working for.
I think it's one of those things that some people are gonna do it and gonna make it work, but just like everything here, particularly in the United States, it's always people that take it too far.
They always push
So
the
it's
envelope,
like,
right?
it's some people like that, it works, like you said, you have people, it works and they work well with it, and that's great, and so they defy the odds of what normal is. But because this is becoming a thing, that thing is gonna be unhealthy. Because it was one thing for them to choose, and here we are, and this is what we have to do, and it's healthy. It's gonna be everybody else, it's gonna be all the avoiders. So then they're gonna take something that worked for some, and it can be a healthy option, and now it's gonna be a way to avoid everything
So
else.
back to what you were just saying, you have to make a decision. You have to choose what it is that you really want. Do you want to be, you know, together, or do you want to be apart? Pick a side. Choose a side.
Anybody else?
Anybody else? Or we just nailed this into the ground here.
Well, thank you guys for coming out.
No, especially thank you for coming
Yes,
out,
thank
because
you.
you could have been doing something else. And we, as a team, as co-hosts, we realized that Saturday is some of the most valuable real estate
Yes,
you
it
have in
is.
terms of time. And we appreciate you coming out. We know that you could have been doing something else. We appreciate you being with us. And thank you. I mean, we say, I speak on behalf of us. Thank you all so much. We appreciate you. We love you. And continue to support us.
And thank you, Erin. We appreciate you for taking this time away from your family and your growing family. Yeah, thank you for all your
Thank you
input.
for being our special guest.
Eric is a soldier.
Yes.
A soldier. Dr. Simpson.
Yeah,
Dr. Simpson.
we couldn't have had this, thank you, Dr. Simpson, we couldn't have had this, the first conversation without him. We needed your input.
And I mean, this ain't somebody that we knew since hopscotch marbles and jumping jacks. You know, she was a friend of a family member. And she came out and she was like,
You weren't our peers, you're so young.
but she came out, she was like, I'm there, I got that. And I'm selling it to her because I'm a marketer by nature. We're all marketers. And we were like, well, see, and it could benefit. She's like, I'm there. And you ever heard somebody tell you, I'm there and they mean it? She was that person. So thank you.
Conversations Over Her is on YouTube. And if you haven't already subscribed, please like, share, and subscribe. Share it with your friends, subscribe. And this particular episode will be on YouTube now because Sloan just did a live stream.
Thank you,
So,
Sloan.
even though you guys are all on it, thank you, Sloan, Williams.
We love you.
We
Thank
do.
you.
Even though you're already on it, drop a comment. Let's get the conversation and the algorithms up. And drop a comment and let us know what your thoughts were so that people who were not there know that they missed a great episode.
Not only that, but to that point, it was so much valuable information that I think can lend to any generation. We have spouses and significant others, we have friends, we have children, some of us have grandchildren. We have enough knowledge, I think, even today to be able to speak to anybody in any of those demographics. That can be helpful. That can help them, move forward through isolation, through possible depression, identifying those signs, challenging yourself to do something different. I mean, I got some golden nuggets. I'm gonna use them myself. I'm gonna go home and clean up. That's what I'm gonna do.
Part of it is just knowing that you're not alone.
Right.
You know, one of the most difficult things about accepting counseling, getting better, growing, feeling, shedding bad behaviors, is knowing that it's okay to do it.
Yeah.
And I think that we've talked about that on a number of levels, and we need to normalize behaviors that lead to our good health. Because I think that we've mastered those behaviors that lead to our bad health.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, thanks again.
Thanks
Everybody,
again, guys.
grab a drink and enjoy. Hey, Maria.